right, this is an interesting one here, right? So Liam Cameron was on Talksport today, and he pointed out some interesting things. And I hope this doesn't put a spanner in the works for Liam Cameron versus Ben Whittaker. We obviously know Liam Cameron is set to face Ben Whittaker April the 20th up in Birmingham. Now, this is a rematch from their quite controversial fight, it has to be said, from last year. So, last year on the undercard of Beterbiev Bivol 1, Liam Cameron was in it very much as the opponent against Ben Whittaker. Ben Whittaker had been on the ascendancy more so in 23 than he had 24. In 2024, he had a couple of performances that really didn't set the world alight. He had a split with his trainer, Sugar Hill Stewart. I think it was on the undercard of Wardley versus Clark 1, where he had a very shaky performance, and people were actually saying he was actually quite disrespectful to even his own cornerman. And yeah, throughout the course of that year, I think he had another fight after that where again didn't set the world alight. Went in there against Liam Cameron, and for my money was losing the fight. They went WWE style over the top rope, and again, I am not in Ben Whittaker's shoes. I don't know what he was feeling at the time, but it looked a fairly minute kerfuffle over the top rope. But he was claiming that he was injured. The fight then went to a decision. I think it was 5 rounds had been completed, so it went to a technical decision. It was ruled a draw, which I think Ben Whittaker was very fortunate to get that draw, to be honest with you. But for me, that fight there, the writing was kind of on the wall, and from the outside looking in, it looked to me like Ben Whittaker was looking for a way out. I gotta bear in mind, Ben Whittaker has been this flashy guy. I compared him quite a lot at the start to Josh Kelly. Now, I said that I felt Ben Whittaker is a more talented Josh Kelly, and a few people pulled me up on that, and they said, no, I disagree with you. I actually don't think he's as talented as Josh Kelly. Josh Kelly, I remember very well at the time when he came around first, and he was a very similar trajectory, it has to be said. He was fighting these obscure journeymen, and very flashy, the movement and stuff like that. But I remember looking at him thinking, and I'd seen a couple of his amateur fights, and I was like, well, he was all right as an amateur, but he got beat a bit as an amateur. He got countered a lot as an amateur against good boxers. You put him in there with a pressure fighter, good luck. So I was always looking at Kelly thinking, what happens when he fights someone with a pulse? But the boxing kind of, Scotland boxing media, will we say, were going ham. Not necessarily the fans, but you had like Boxing Legends TV, I think it was called. They were like, going, ham. This fighters like the new Loma, Adam Smith. When Josh Kelly fought some obscure opponent and he threw a couple of left hooks. What a win! It's incredible. It's not really. You can do that against an obscure opponent. And ultimately, when he fought Avanesian a couple of years ago now, we saw what happened, and Kelly has kind of still been in limbo ever since. Now, as I said, I thought Whittaker was slightly better than that, but he seems to maybe not even be that. Let's get to this article. So, Liam Cameron claims Ben Whittaker's team are trying to get the number of rounds changed for their rematch, despite the contract already being signed. The bitter rivals are set to square off on April 20th at the B Plus Arena in Birmingham after their encounter last October ended in controversy. It certainly did. In the dying embers of the fifth round, both men flipped over the top rope, yada yada yada. We don't need to go into that. We do not need to go into that. We already know about that. Cameron was snapped up by Frank Warren, Queensway Promotions, thereafter, and subsequently signed to run it back with Ben Whittaker over 12 rounds. Now understand, over 12 rounds. However, the Sheffield boxer insists Whittaker's representatives are now trying to reduce the number of rounds to 10 rounds just 3 weeks before fight night. During an appearance on Talksport, White and Jordan show on Monday lunchtime, Cameron said, "There is a mess about with the contract that nobody is letting me speak about, so I'm going to try on here. We had signed for a 12-round fight and they are trying to push it for a 10-rounder, doing everything that they can, and I'm not budging. I have a 12-round fight. I tried to do it on Gloves Are Off and they wouldn't let me speak about it. And on Sky Sports, they didn't air my interview." I can't say I'm surprised Sky Sports would do that, to be honest with you. "This is a problem we are having. I signed a contract for 12 rounds. When I signed the contracts, I thought he could barely get through 5 rounds. This is weird." So a couple of weeks went by. They tried to send another contract for a 10-rounder. That shows the confidence levels. I'm ready for 15 rounds. It is signed for 12 rounds. That has been a mistake there, or there has been a mistake there. They thought they sent me a 10 rounder, but in reality it said 12 rounder. Cameron went on to claim that Whittaker signed his side of the 12 round deal before revealing Warren's stance. Warren, is saying that we are not budging no matter what Cameron added. There's nothing else further on that. So let me just give my 2 cents on it. Listen, Ben Shalom, I'm Ben Whittaker. Ben Shalom has shown himself to be I wouldn't trust him to tell me the right time in a room full of clocks. It'd be the best way to describe it. I seen an interview with Carl Frampton, and I forget who it was with, but he was asked, people in boxing, you don't really trust or like, and obviously he has major beef with the McGuigans. First person he said was he really doesn't trust Ben Shalom. A lot of people have been saying that. I know Frank Warren is, he looks at Ben Shalom and is like, don't go here. I'm the Don. I'm the Don of this. Don't try it. A lot of people have speculated that one of the reasons he signed Liam Cameron is just to kind of, look at me, I'm just doing this to spite you. And going back to what Cameron was saying about it being originally a 12 rounder, them being, content with that, then to go back and retract that and say, no, it's going to be a 10 rounder. Now, obviously, that's obviously on the basis that Cameron agrees, which he's not gonna. A 10 rounder, if it's someone like a Ben Whittaker, who people were saying was looking, and he was looking tired in the first fight after only 5 rounds. And again, he wasn't fighting, it wasn't fought at, a manic pace. This wasn't like Hagler Hearns or Gaddy Ward type fight or anything like that, where you could say, okay, Jesus, they set the world alight in the first couple of rounds. Not really. They didn't fight at a slow pace either, but it wasn't anything major. So if he's struggling with that, that might indicate a bit of a stamina issue. And I suspect that Team Whittaker, maybe not necessarily Ben Whittaker himself. Ben Whittaker has come across, or certainly shows, outwardly that he's very confident. But I suspect this team aren't necessarily that, because it really does seem to me that Ben Whittaker is, or at least was, maybe not necessarily now, was the only kind of guy that Ben Shalom had that you could look at and say, okay, you could probably do something. In around being a bit of a sellout star, something like that, because I don't really see Azim doing it. And again, with Ben Shalom, you got to say a lot of the things he has done have rubbed a lot of people up the wrong way. I mean, when I just mentioned Adam Azim, how difficult, and it's still not happened yet. But Dalton Smith, for God's sake, I mean, Eddie Hearn doesn't even speak too highly of Shalom because of the whole Dalton, and we obviously know Eddie Hearn, Ben Shalom. Let's not go there. But the whole Dalton Smith situation. I mean, at the end of the day, you got your guy a European title shot in Adam Azim, you win that, and then you go and you fight. Well, originally they were talking about Harlem Eubank. They ended up fighting O'Hara Davis because, he's not ready for this, that, and the other. Well, now, hang on a minute, right? You're going to fight for a European title. You should be ready enough to defend it. What is the point in fighting for it if you've no intention of defending it? That would be like Anthony Joshua or Eddie Hearn, and he would have got absolutely annihilated for doing this. That would be like Anthony Joshua winning a world title against Charles Martin, when in fact, in reality, he wasn't really ready for that world title and the responsibility that came with it, right? He wasn't really ready. It meant that, he lost a lot of development in his career. He had to go and get fast-tracked. But he kept that title, he defended it, he fought Klitschko a year later, and he was willing to carry that burden, right? It's not a European title, for God's sake. All right, we're ready to win it, but we're not ready to defend it. Oh, what? It's ridiculous, carry on. And this is another example of it. I think if it's signed for 12 rounds, Liam Cameron shouldn't budge. Go for the 12 rounds. It's going to be real interesting to see how this fight goes ahead. I probably would still favour Whittaker slightly, but over the course, I mean, those 2 rounds, they can really change a fight. I mean, you look at someone like Francis Ngannou, he insisted, I think, on the Fury fight and certainly on the Joshua fight, them being 10 rounds. Didn't matter in the Joshua fight. When you look at a fight, those 2 rounds can be the difference. A good example would be if you look at Johnny Fisher versus Dave Allen. If that was a 12 rounder, Johnny Fisher loses. He might even get stopped. It's a 10 rounder. He ends up with a very dubious decision, but a decision nonetheless. It can make a world of difference, especially if you're a fighter who does maybe question your stamina. Liam Cameron is not a particularly big puncher. I'm pretty sure he has gone to 12 round distance, but for him, that suits him. For someone like a Ben Whittaker, has he ever even, he's been in scheduled 10 round or 12 rounders, I'm sure, but has he ever actually gone the full distance? I'm going to check his box rec real quick. And check, I don't think he's done, certainly not a scheduled 12 rounder. He's done the 10 round distance before. But, and again, against that guy, he didn't look amazing in that 10 rounder, it had to be said. It really didn't. So, yeah, and actually, if you go on BoxRec, there's still a question mark over this fight in terms of the rounds. So they are really pushing hard for this. In terms of Liam Cameron, I'm sure he's gone the distance before. He has, in a losing effort, but he has still gone the distance before. Twice in losing efforts. Yeah, twice he's gone the distance in losing efforts. So he is familiar with the 10 round or 12 round distance, if nothing else. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. Do you agree with Liam Cameron that if it was scheduled for 12 rounds, if the contract was sent for 12 rounds, then it should be a 12 rounder? They shouldn't be, retracting that and pulling it back and doing this. And Frank Warren's not going to budge. It's not going to happen. Liam Cameron and Frank Warren are not going to budge. Could this actually spell potentially the end of this fight? Could they look to, I don't think they can. I don't think he could live that down. I think Ben Shalom, the absolute backlash he'll get if they pull the fight for that reason, I don't think there's any coming back from that. I really don't. And Sky have few and far between good shows as it is. Very few. Very, very few. So I don't think they can do that. Let me know your thoughts. A very interesting one in the comments section below. For now, I hope you enjoyed it. Smash the like button. Hit subscribe. All that good stuff. Until next time. Peace.